Hey, good morning. I'm honored to be here today to talk about mindfulness and how it relates to resiliency. In so doing, I'm going to share with you 3 stories of people that I've met along the way who practice mindfulness in different ways. One is Bobby, one is Frank, and one is Molly. And I'm going to start off right away with Bobby. Bobby is an 8-year-old who has incredible energy. When he walks, he doesn't walk like this. He walks kind of like, he's all over the place. You've seen the 8-year-old kids who just have all kinds of energy. And one morning, I'm sitting in one of these kind of retirement communities surrounded by about 80 people who are 60 to 90 years old, kind of relaxed in the lounge chair. Some of us, like me, are just floating around in the water. There's a few of the grandkids off to the side, and it's very quiet and sedate. You got the picture? And then there's rules about this tall all over the pool. It says things like no splashing, no jumping, and so on. Well, Bobby comes walking in with his mother and his grandmother. The mother and grandmother kind of go off to the side to get their lounge chair. And Bobby, of course, sees the water, sees some kids, and when you're full of energy at 8 years old, what do? And you got water in front of you? You do the cannonball, right? And he jumps in, and water's flying all over the place. He's talking really, really loud to all the other kids, introducing themselves. And of course, what do you do after you do the first cannonball? You do the second one, and you do the third one. And by that time, water is all over the place. And I think just about everyone at this pool center knew that Bobby was there. And a couple of them probably wanted to call the pool police already on Bobby. What can we do with this kid? And he's been only there for maybe 60 or 90 seconds. Holy moly. And then just about then, his mother comes walking by and just says 2 words to Bobby. Bobby, breathe. So I'm kind of watching this whole thing unfold. I've been a meditation practitioner, trying to pay attention to everything in life. I'm watching the thing unfold. Bobby gets up out of the water. He sits on the side of the pool. And he starts leading an instruction about how to do mindful breathing, except really loud. And he's going, okay, 1 hand on your heart, 1 hand on your belly. Breath in, breath out, breath in, breath out. And all of a sudden you could see the other kids there. They're following Bobby's lead. So am I. I thought it was kind of cool. Mindfulness at the retirement community. Breath in, breath out. He's still pretty loud. He's into this for about a minute now. He's getting a little bit quieter. You could see his shoulders relax, his face kind of relax, but he's got everybody's attention. And just about then, he goes, so what I'm doing here is I'm doing a relaxation technique. And when I do it, it calms me down. And when I'm calm, I can be kind to other people. What just happened here? I'm just kind of blown away by this kid and how smart he is for 8 years old. He continues for another 2 minutes. Breath in, breath out, breath in, breath out. His voice is getting very quiet. His head is kind of going down. His shoulders are relaxed. Breath in, breath out, breath in, breath out. And at about 3 minutes, he kind of looks up. He looks around. He slides into the pool. And then he swims towards the other kids. And here's the next thing that kind of blew me away was they start talking about mindfulness. A bunch of 6, 8, and 10-year-olds talking about mindfulness. Well, I do this in school too, and I do this No, and I do this, and I do that. So they're all talking about mindfulness, and they're playing very calmly. So as a mindfulness practitioner, I'm pretty impressed at what just unfolded in front of me. And it kind of reminds me of, Vic talked earlier about Viktor Frankl, and I think for many of us, Viktor Frankl is kind of our hero. But he had a saying that between stimulus and response, there's a space. And with that space, we have a choice of how we're going to respond. And for Bobby, he made a choice, right, of how he was going to respond. He was going to calm down because he wanted to be kind. A little bit later, I went over, I talked to the mother and said, tell me a little bit about Bobby. I introduced who I was and so on. She said, well, Bobby, ever since he's been going to the school, they have a mindful program. And for 2 minutes before every class, they do a mindful exercise. And he's learned over 20 exercises now to help him. And not only does he do it in class, at home sometimes he said, Mom, I'm just going to go do some of my exercises. And she said, I didn't have to do anything except, good job, Bobby. He just kind of took it to, the level of this is like a duck in water. I'm supposed to be doing this in life. So what do the mindful educators say about how this is working in the school system? Educators see these 4 things in particular. An 83% improved focus. Pretty powerful, right? 89% see better emotional regulation. 76% see more compassion. And 79% see improved engagement. I think if you talk to teachers, isn't that what teachers say I wish was going on in my classrooms? And for 2 minutes at every class, that's what they're spending. And how eager, when I watch some of these kids do this, they are just eager to do these exercises. And this is according to Mindful Schools through a study that was done with the University of California. So we got the 8-year-old, right? What about the other end of the spectrum? Frank. Frank, when I meet him, he's 77 years old. He's a delightful man. I'm in a meditation group with him at a church down in Florida. They offer this once a week, and about 30 of us show up. It's an ongoing meditation program. It's led for about an hour. Then we have discussion, and we end with loving kindness. And Frank always had something to say. He was very, very enthusiastic. And then one day, the instructor who was helping us said, how come you were meditating? Frank's hand was the first one to go up. And Frank said, I think mindfulness was a bunch of crap. It was a hoax. It was terrible. No way, no how. And then he said, 4 years ago, I had a heart attack. And then I had heart surgery. And then I had back problems. And then I had diabetes. And I was in pain all over my whole body. And as he's sitting there talking, he goes, these damn legs wouldn't work. I wanted to give up. So he said a little later he was going to, the doctor was treating him for his diabetes, and she offered him a class at the local hospital, and he thought, no, not for me. And then he said about 8 weeks later, he's back in the office, but in the waiting room this time, and this woman, his age, starts talking about, boy, I was in that last mindfulness class. It's really helped me. My pain's so much better, but I have so much energy. I'm feeling so much better about life. Well, Frank, the person who thought the whole thing was a hoax, called up the hospital. And he joined the class. And he said within 3 weeks, his pain started to subside. He started to feel better. He said at week 5, his wife came up to him and said, Frank, what's going on with you? You've been going around the house singing. You seem happy again. And I got to tell you, you were about the grumpiest man on earth, and I understood that for everything that you went through. but you're kind of fun to live with again. What's going on? He knew at that moment it was the mindfulness that was changing his life. And he said he continued the program for 8 weeks, and then another interesting thing happened. He goes, my wife and my granddaughter, who was dealing with some pretty serious medical conditions, she was in her early 30s, decided to take the next class. And now, years later, we all have a practice of mindfulness. And we practice sometimes together, sometimes we go to different places to do it. But it has changed my life. And then he said, my medications have been cut in half. I feel so much better. But meditation is my new medication. He said, maybe medications keep me alive, but meditation helps me feel alive. Pretty powerful coming from somebody who thought it was a big bunch of crap, right? What a difference in his life. Now let's look at what the research says about someone like Frank. Heart problem, pain, diabetes. Mindfulness meditation is good for our heart. It may decrease cognitive decline. Well, at 77, I don't know about you, I'm not quite there yet, but I'm all over trying to meditate. I'm trying to deal with a cognitive decline. Research shows that. Here's another interesting thing from NIH. Mindfulness may relieve chronic pain more effectively than standard treatments. And for Frank, that certainly was true. And then for people who are diabetic, mindfulness may improve glycemic control and manage painful neuropathy. That's the pain he was having in his leg, and the depression. All from UC Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center. So we got the young kid, right? We got the 77-year-old man. What's in between? Molly. Molly was also a very pleasant surprise in my life. She was 46 years old, and we were meditating at a kind of a yoga studio where they did a whole bunch of holistic kinds of activities. And it was an ongoing class rather than an 8-week program. So at times I would walk in with Molly, and she had just the most beautiful smile on her face, very quick, always looked absolutely happy. But I didn't really know much about her life, and somewhere, probably week 10 or something like that, the leader said, so tell me about what brings people to mindfulness. And people were going around the room, and then it was Molly's turn, and she's sitting there, and she goes, this is kind of hard to say, but I really want to share it with you. About 4 years ago, my husband died from cancer, early 40s. Well, he was my high school sweetheart. And then after high school, we married. We went to college together. We did everything together. It was an incredible life. He was a beautiful man. And when he died, my life just kind of went away. I was depressed. I was angry. I was anxious. I couldn't sleep. I tried counseling. I tried a grief group. I was on 3 or 4 different medications. It went on for a couple of years. It didn't seem to help. And one day, my minister said, Molly, we have a new parishioner here who is offering to have a mindfulness class for the folks here. And maybe you might want to consider it. And Molly thought about it. And she was a nurse at a local hospital, so she heard about mindfulness but never thought about it for her. So she signed up, and she said somewhere about halfway through, the assignment was as simple as, for the next week, go out for a walk every day, but do it really slow. And just use all of your senses to look at everything around you, the trees, how the breeze feels on your skin, whatever you might experience, just experience that and really take your time. So the next day, she walked through a park that she's walked through many times, and it's got a sidewalk going through the park. And she's walking, and she said, I'm kind of looking at everything, kind of what they're telling me to, and I'm trying to get the feeling of it. And she said, halfway through, I looked down, and there was a flower growing between two slabs of concrete. And she goes, for some reason, I just stopped. And I kept looking down, and I kept bending down, and then finally she said, then I'm on my knees. And she said, when I hit my knees, the tears started rolling down her cheeks. And she said it was like slow motion, where I could feel every drop come down my cheeks, and I could see every drop hit the concrete, until finally a drop hit the flower. She said something about that moment in my life changed. And she said, if a flower can thrive and grow between two slabs of concrete, then I can thrive and grow as well. I think everyone in that room that was meditating was blown away by Molly because she always looks so happy, and then she tells the story. So what does the research say about happiness and joy? Well, according to a large study by Dr. Killingsworth at Harvard, this was, I think, 15,000 people in 80 different countries. We're happiest when we are mindful of the moment. And we're least happy when the mind is wandering. And a study at UCLA Berkeley, or multiple studies at UCL Berkeley, says there's ample evidence that mindfulness improves well-being and can increase happiness and joy. So what did Bobby, Frank, and Molly have in common? They had a regular practice of mindfulness that built resiliency in their life for life's ups and downs. And according to Richard Davidson, famous neuroscientist, psychiatrist at the University of Wisconsin Center for Healthy Brains, said the more mindfulness meditation you practice, the more resilient your brain becomes. And with this, I'd like to end kind of how we would end a mindful practice at a center that we often go to. There's kind of a loving kindness. It takes a lot of minutes to do it, but with this, just want to end with, may you be well. May you be happy. And may you be at peace. Thank you.